Thank you, Chairman Stahler, and thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being with us today. Took a little longer than normal years to get to you, but glad that we're able to talk for a couple of minutes here. It's interesting that the way the discussion has went today, especially related to the voter fraud issue. First, I don't think you're a masochist. To clarify that, because you'd mentioned that earlier in response. But some of the words that you use do concern me. You and I have had a lot of good discussions and related to voting and election code and,
Sure.
and some of the things that have been taking place prior to last year's election and many years back and about last year's elections. But when you talked about that you'd want to see convictions and that you didn't see any pervasive voter fraud. There was no systemic voter fraud. My concern, and I believe your concern is, even though those words were used, is that each and every legally cast vote in the Commonwealth is protected from being nullified by an illegally cast vote. I mean, so often the electorate, you'll hear from some people that, well, my vote doesn't count. Well, I think that we have a duty as elected officials, as appointed individuals in this Commonwealth that are executing the laws that this Commonwealth has in place to protect the vote, that we ensure that each and every vote is protected. So I believe you do believe, as I do, that each and every vote, each single vote, doesn't have to be massive to actually disenfranchise the electorate. If any vote's cast that nullifies another legally cast vote, that's wrong, that's an injustice, whether it's your vote being nullified, mine, the chairman's, or an older citizen from Philadelphia, Erie, or a mom of two from Butler County. So, you know, I think first is just to set up, because I noticed some of the words and I wanted to make sure that we were clear on that. And you'd said that maybe there's some isolated incidents. Well, as much as the other side tried to decry that there isn't any, I mean, I've got an article here from January of last year that the headline reads, 3 former Philadelphia election officials pled guilty. Under a plea deal, it goes on to say, felony fraud charges were dropped because of the plea. So in Philadelphia, fraud that took place, a plea deal that was made, a conviction. I also have, as was mentioned, and you testified at the hearing in October, about a month before the election last year, where we had J. Christian Adams testifying, and he provided us with information obtained from Philadelphia, several pages of information related to several years' worth of self-reporting foreign nationals in Philadelphia that had self-reported that they were registered to vote and they shouldn't be. And when you look at the votes cast by those individuals, there were a larger percentage than certainly should have. There should have been 0 of those individuals voting if they would have voted inadvertently when they got their driver's, or registered inadvertently when they got their driver's license. So we have evidence, just from Philly, you've got 66 counties left, that foreign nationals in the state, over a period of several years, have registered to vote. Some of them have voted, disenfranchising legally cast votes. And whether it turned an election or not, I'm not sure. Most likely not, but it could have, and if it did, even if it didn't, it's still undermining those legally cast votes. And in light of that, that is why I sent, and once, you know, every vote needs to be protected, each and every single legally cast vote. And that's why I sent you a letter recently, which I'm sure you're in receipt of, to ask you to do as other states have done, which was a recommendation out of the hearing last October, and that is utilize the SAVE system, which is a systematic alien verification for entitlements program, that it's a federal program that states can use to verify that when somebody registers or tries to apply to do something within that state, those state agencies, that we can run them through that system. And if they're a foreign national that's identified in that system, it will help us to identify they're a foreign national and shouldn't be in that program, or in this case, registering to vote in our state. Now, it won't catch all of the illegal aliens that are here that might try and register to vote, but it will stop any foreign national that's in a database. Some might be illegal, some may be here legally. The majority in that system will probably be here legally. But once again, I mean, it's fraud that's being committed. I've got 3 pages, which I'm happy to give to anybody here that tries to say that it's not occurring, that came from Philadelphia's information in their voter database, that we've had foreign nationals voting in Pennsylvania, not 1, not 2, but many. And we have election officials in Philadelphia convicted on fraud charges, ultimately pled out, and were charged with fraud and pled out. So there's the conviction, there's the evidence. I need your help, Mr. Secretary, in ensuring that our voter rolls are as clean as possible to make sure every vote's protected.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Can you help me with the SAVE system?
Let me ask you. I'll put it back on you. Is it your sense, because you and I go back many, many, many years, is it your sense, and I use the words carefully, I'm not a wordsmith, but when people start talking about 1, 2, 3, 5, 100, let me just go back to your point, because we all agree. The sanctity of the vote and voting and democracy ought to be protected. All right? And in an ideal world, it happens. And we unfortunately don't live in an ideal world. That's not an excuse. I'm just talking about reality. I'm talking about facts. That's why I went out of my way to say to you, sir, I'm not saying unequivocally it doesn't happen. One too many? Absolutely. I agree. All right? So, but I want to just make sure that I leave the room here today with at least a sense of whether you believe that over the years, I've been a good partner to you, to your committee, and to the people of Pennsylvania. Do you have any evidence or anything that would suggest to you that we have ever, in the exercise of our duties, and I speak for myself, I don't put it on anyone else, although everybody here is super ethical. When I raise my hand and I say that I will, protect and support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of this Commonwealth, I do so. And I swear in more people than most around this room. So, I hope that by my actions, not my words, you and others in this committee are satisfied that I mean it. So the short answer is yes, sir. I will continue to work with you. I will continue to look for ways. The SAFE program is something that I'm looking. I want to talk to the other jurisdictions that have it because I want to do due diligence. That's just who I am. But and I hope that you have a clear sense that with me, what I do with a deep sense of integrity. And when I raised my hand and took that oath, I mean it. And I'm going to do it, and so we're on the same page there. So your point is well taken.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and I appreciate you looking into the SAVE system. And from our work together over the years, I have no question from our relationship of working together on these issues that you have the same intent as I do, and that's to uphold and defend the Constitution and make sure that our laws are being executed. But I wanted to clarify today. And certainly the words that were used, I want to make sure that everyone knows that you do believe just as I do, and that's that every vote counts, and that we need to make sure that we protect each and every legally cast vote from being canceled out by any illegally cast votes, and I appreciate you looking at the SAFE system to help us do that. Thank you.
Thank you.